Good evening, my Real News Midday TV family. Welcome back to the channel for another news update. And in the news this evening, courtroom evacuated after man brings a machete and a baton to hearing. A courtroom at the Kingston and the St. Andrew Parish Court was evacuated on Tuesday after a man brought a bag containing a machete and a baton, which he claimed to be evidence for his hearing for an assault charge. The man, Richard Notice, 37, was before the court on a charge of assault occasioning bodily harm following an altercation involving a 15-year-old boy. The court heard that the incident stemmed from a community football match. The boy, after receiving a yellow card, began quarreling with other players. Notice claimed that he intervened to get the boy off the field, but the situation escalated and became physical. During the interaction, he reportedly made explicit remarks to the boy, which he returned. The boy then ran off, reportedly shouting at Notice to stay right there. Senior Parish Judge Sanjay Burrell remarked that many cases before the court stem from people not knowing when to hold their tongue. Everybody in Jamaica knows those are fighting words, she said, referring to the curse words used by Notice. The complainant's mother told the court that this was not the first time Notice had behaved inappropriately, but said many in the community were too afraid to report him. In his defense, Notice claimed that the boy had returned with a cutlass and a baton. He then pointed to a grey crossbody bag he had brought into the courtroom. Judge Burrell asked if he had brought weapons into the courtroom. Notice responded that he had, saying they were evidence. An officer then retrieved the bag, taking it to Judge Burrell, who questioned who gave Notice permission to bring a weapon into the courtroom. Notice informed the judge that he had told an officer it was evidence and it was allowed entry. Judge Burrell opened the bag, examined the contents, and then sanitized her hands. She expressed a concern, especially given that lawyers often sit with their backs to the prisoner's dock. Burrell then stood the matter down and left the courtroom. The room was filled with murmurs questioning how such an incident could happen. Shortly after, a female officer entered and instructed everyone to evacuate. A sweep of the courtroom was conducted, and within minutes, the room was filled again. When Judge Burrell returned, she addressed the Notice, stating that while what he did was not permitted, she understood that he may not have known the rules. In regard to the matter before the court, Judge Burrell urged both parties to consider restorative justice, noting that community members must learn to live together peacefully. She emphasized that adults cannot discipline children unless it is sanctioned by the parent. The matter was referred to restorative justice, with both parties scheduled to return to court on November 6. As Notice exited, Judge Burrell lightly asked, "Is the bag empty now?" "Yes, Your Honor," he replied. Keon Cole arrested after gun found at a Grantspen home. A man who goes by the name Keon Cole has been arrested and charged with the possession of a prohibited weapon and unauthorized possession of ammunition following a seizure on Grantspen Drive in St. Andrew on Tuesday. Charged is 40-year-old Dean Harris of the community. According to the police, lawmen were conducting an operation in the area when Harris was seen at a premises. He was reportedly approached and interviewed by the police. A subsequent search of the premises yielded a Hellcat 9mm pistol along with 3 9mm cartridges, the police said. The incident happened about 12:40 a.m. Harris was then arrested and formally charged after a question and answer session. His court date is being finalized. 3 dead, 2 injured in Hanover crash. 3 people were killed and 2 others injured in a 2-vehicle crash along Norman Manley Boulevard in Hanover on Tuesday. The deceased have been identified as 65-year-old Calbert Hart of Cousins Cove, Hanover, 47-year-old Owen Jackson of Codwell, Hanover, and 37-year-old Ricardo Baylis, a laborer of Horton, Green Island, Hanover. Reports from the Green Island police are that around 5:50 p.m., a brown Toyota Hilux was traveling west towards Negril when upon reaching a section of the main road the driver lost the control of the vehicle. The police said the vehicle then veered off its path and collided with a green Toyota Corolla motor car being driven by Jackson. The police were alerted to the scene, where Hart and Jackson were pronounced dead. Bayliss and the driver of the Hilux were transported to hospital, where Bayliss died while undergoing treatment. The driver of the Hilux and the fourth occupant traveling in the Toyota Corolla were hospitalized. The investigation is ongoing. Shopkeeper gunned down in Coopers Hill, St. Andrew. A man was shot and killed at his shop in Coopers Hill, St. Andrew on Tuesday. He has been identified as 31-year-old Lamar Lindo. Police report that around 1:25 a.m., Lindo was at his shop when he was pounced upon by unknown assailants. He was shot multiple times. The police were summoned and Lindo was assisted to the Kingston Public Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Detectives assigned to the Content Spring Criminal Investigation Branch are probing the matter. St. Catherine man to serve over 33 years for rape, trafficking, and child pornography involving daughter and stepdaughter. A St. Catherine man who pleaded guilty to multiple sexual offenses in relation to his underage daughter and stepdaughter was on Tuesday sentenced to a total of over 70 years in the Home Circuit Court. The 46-year-old taxi operator was sentenced by Justice Bertram Morrison to 33 years and 8 months on the charges of rape, grievous sexual assault, and having sex with a person under 16. The man was also sentenced to 15 years for trafficking, 10 years for child pornography, 10 years for incest, and 3 years for assault occasioning bodily harm. While being sentenced to over 70 years, the judge ordered that the sentences run concurrently, which means that the man will serve 33 years and 8 months behind the bars. The man had pleaded guilty to the offense on February 14 this year in the St. Catherine Circuit Court. The court heard that between January 2022 and December 2023, the underage girls were forced by the man to engage in sexual acts. A report was made to the police in February 2024, and an investigation was launched by the Center for Investigation of Sexual Offenses and Child Abuse. The man was subsequently arrested and later charged. Man in Antigua sentenced to 30 years in prison for murdering Jamaican hairdresser. Sean Mussington, the man found guilty of murdering a Jamaican hairdresser with whom he had a relationship, had been sentenced to 30 years in prison. He was sentenced in the High Court on Tuesday. Mussington was found guilty of the capital offense following a jury trial in March. The judge ordered that the sentence be reviewed after Mussington has served 20 years. Mussington was charged with the brutal killing of his former partner, Simone White Barrington, an offense which occurred on November 14, 2020. During the trial, which lasted about a week, the prosecution led evidence showing that Mussington was unable to get over his breakup with White Barrington. The prosecution portrayed Mussington as a stalker, describing his actions as a cowardly sneak attack. The Crown also argued that he was obsessed with her and refused to let go, ultimately becoming dangerous. Mussington stabbed White Barrington in the chest with a knife during a gathering. It was reported that he had been monitoring her movements on the fateful night before grabbing her as she passed him and inflicting the fatal wound. The Jamaican hairdresser died at the scene. Second woman charged in relation to discovery of senior's mummified body in Westmoreland. Several charges have been laid against another Westmoreland woman following the discovery of the mummified body of 69-year-old Viola Destin in Old Hope District, Little London in the parish on July 6. 49-year-old Laverne Weatherburn of Rocky Hill in Sheffield is the second person to be charged in the matter, joining 54-year-old Gina Robinson of Old Hope District. They have been charged with concealment of a corpse, preventing the lawful burial of a corpse, perverting the course of justice, conspiracy to concealment of a corpse, and a conspiracy to prevent the lawful burial of a corpse. The Savannah Lamar police say Wedderburn saw Dustin begging in Savannah Lamar sometime in 2023 and told Robinson about her situation. Robinson and Wedderburn then sought advice from a pastor overseas, and following his instructions, they started to care for Destin. Shortly after, Destin became gravely ill and was moved to Robinson's house in the Old Hope district, where she died on December 10. The police alleged that, following her death, the caregivers opted to conceal the body inside a room at the house and sprinkled it with chemicals and baking soda to keep the stench down. One of Robinson's relatives reportedly stumbled upon the makeshift grave at the house on July 6 and summoned the police. On their arrival, the mummified remains of the elderly woman were found covered beneath sheets, plastic, and tarpaulin. Following the discovery, the scene was processed and the remains were transported to the morgue, pending a post-mortem. Robinson was taken into custody the very same day the body was found, and Wedderburn arrested 3 days later. They were charged on Tuesday after they gave caution statements. The police say they also confessed to the roles they played in question and answer sessions in the presence of 2 justices of the peace. A court date is being finalized for them. Thank you everyone for watching. See you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for another news update.